to the episode number 6 in Cyber Diaries. We have another wonderful guest with us today, Simon Linstead, who's the founder of Infosec.Live. So great to have you, Simon, with us.
Great to have you too. Sorry, I was just slurping my coffee there. I didn't know you'd put me up on the screen yet. No, it's an absolute pleasure. We've obviously met at a couple of events in the past, and I'm honoured to be your 6th guest on your show, Marius. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to, I guess, take a bit of direction. We obviously talked, last few episodes where we're talking about technology founders and talking to people how they are solving specific technological problems. And I guess we kind of taken a bit of a turn, and we're going into sort of community development, community spirit, and I guess a few words, Simon, first of all, for those of the listeners who might not have heard of Infosec.Live. So if you can just briefly tell what's the community about, what's the ethos of the community, and then we'll probably cover how it came about.
Of course. I suppose I should start with, you mentioned the fact that the previous shows have been about the technology focus and perhaps the process focus of the industry. I'd like to think that this is the people part that we're talking about today. And without going into a huge amount of background about my journey, I founded Infosec.Live back in June 2021 after I'd come in or tried to enter the industry from a 25-year career in financial services, regulated sales, effectively with my own business. I'd spent my whole life thinking money was success. And I got to the point in probably 2017, 2018, where I had everything I'd ever wanted from a financial point of view, whether it's toys, cars, boats. And I got it wrong, is the honest answer. And the amount of pressure I put under myself for the business ended up in me having a breakdown and going from millionaire to bankrupt really quickly back in 2018, 2019. And I had to refocus my life. I've been clean of alcohol now since March 2019. Because my wife kicked me out for a few months because I wasn't in a good place and wasn't particularly good for my 6 children. When I came back home, it was the question of, you're 46 years old, now what? And I'd spent my life building businesses and making money, and I'd never been happy. So for me, a couple of things had happened. I'd been diagnosed with ADHD at 46, which helped me understand my risk-taking mentality and my incessant need to talk at people. Yeah. So I found Buddhism at that point, and meditation became a huge part of my life to help me cope with that and help me get focus. And it also showed me the rewards you get from helping other people rather than helping yourself. So after I misguidedly tried to come in as a penetration tester with zero networking experience, just thought I had enough knowledge, believed the hype online. I spent thousands on lab time for OSCP, ended up failing it in October 2020, and ended up coming into the industry as the head of sales for a pen test company early in 2020. Sorry, 2021. But the thing that I found from all the people I was speaking to is there was such a need for people to get help with the communication aspect. So from people breaking in to those people like yourself who are sitting on the board who haven't, perhaps not like you, but other people who haven't had that experience before. So I refitted, it was a sales funnel, actually, a sales funnel I'd built for my wife's business, which was Virtual Assistant, and it was called Social Alchemy. Since I'd been working in the industry, my wife had stopped working to concentrate on bringing up the children full time. And one afternoon, I went through all the things on my bank statement that I'd been paying, try and cut down some costs. And one of them was this network community platform that we built out for her. So one afternoon in June 2021, I found a name, called it Infosec.Live, found some free resources for soft skills, etc., and put them on there with no intention of it going anywhere other than using a wasted resource that I'd been paying for. And it's changed my life. We've ended up growing to 6,000 members globally. We've helped hundreds of people get jobs. We're in the process this week of registering as a not-for-profit here in the UK. And the main focus of the community is networking and knowledge sharing, bringing people together at all levels in the industry. It did start off more with people breaking in, but as things have grown over the last 3 years, we've now got a spread of, probably 20% security leaders, then mid-market people and people trying to break in. So basically trying to help people get the right advice at the right time, get the right knowledge from their peers at the right time without being in a very sales pitched focused environment.
I think it's great way to do things, and I think communities are sort of growing and becoming another way where you can get knowledge from peers, but you also get, because I think, as you just kind of mentioned, I think it can seem daunting and dark.
Yeah.
You just go into cybersecurity and you think, oh, some people told me get a few courses under my belt, and
Yeah.
I'll be off and ready to go. But I think sometimes people miscomprehend, and I think the way the industry is changing as well. And as you just mentioned, kind of, yes, you can gather some technical skills, but sometimes, and usually, obviously, you need to still convince someone, A, via the interview, that you are the right person for the job,
Yeah.
using your communication skills. And secondly, I always say to juniors, sometimes, no matter how great your idea is, unless you can convince people of the validity of your idea might not reach a day of light.
You've got to be able to tell a story, right?
Yeah,
That's
and I think
yeah.
that's sort of that's the new wave, I guess, of how people are looking to develop, further skills, soft skills, as we probably call them.
Yeah.
I wanted to pick up on a few things. Obviously, you mentioned you wanted to be a pen tester, and obviously, you failed the course. But how do you see the market currently changing? Because as you probably know, through your community and through people, talking outreach, entry to sort of to entry level roles or entry into the industry, it's not easy as probably once was, because the competition is keep rising.
Yeah.
The skills need, I guess, the bar is keep raising as well, because obviously there's a plethora of people who trying to break in. So how do you see this market shaping and changing?
That's a great question, and not a short answer. I think it's the immediate thought there. There's a few things I want to pick up on. The first one is managing expectations, and here I'm talking about candidates' own expectations. So I came with no tech experience other than I've had my hands on the keyboard. This keyboard, actually, which is here, it's not a prop. I've just been clearing stuff out since I was 8 years old. So when I decided to follow my passion, which was tech, I thought I knew a lot about computers. So I believed the hype that I listened to online, that I could do a few of those exams and then become a penetration tester. So I think I didn't manage my own expectations very well. I had huge knowledge gaps and still do in the networking part, which is the part that unraveled the OSCP for me. I'd effectively learned like a monkey, right? I'd learned how to do stuff, but I had no idea underneath how it was working. And I think candidates or people trying to break in need to get those honest opinions on what their expectations should be, on how long that would take, and what actual fundamental knowledge they need for certain roles. I mean, we'll pick pen tester as one because there are roles in the industry where you perhaps don't need to be able to code, right? Like GRC and other ones. But to be a penetration tester, you need to have a solid understanding of networking before you even start learning to be a pen tester. And that's the bit I missed out. And we see that all the time with people trying to come in. And there's a great picture, a meme on LinkedIn of someone trying to put their foot up 5 stairs, isn't there? Which says basic knowledge. Then I mean, that was me effectively. So I think we've got misconceptions and mismanagement of expectations from candidates, which are made worse by some of the cybersecurity influencers who spend all of their time on LinkedIn trying to get likes by saying it's a travesty. There's no entry level jobs. Entry level should mean entry level. And I agree with that, because certain part of that is true. But an entry level penetration testing job, I would argue you still need to have experience, whether that's home labs or whether it's a job in networking and the fundamentals. So for people to say, do a 6-month course and come in and get £100,000 a year job, I don't think is helping anyone. I think the other problem is the economy at the moment. And as a business owner myself, the pressures that businesses are under to make money effectively, taking someone on and training them for a year or two before they contribute anything to the bottom line.
I think I've just lost your mic, Simon.
Where did I go? Where did I go?
Oh, okay, yeah. I just said we just lost your mic on the last few sentences.
I said the last few sentences was, I hope I'm not coming across like a doom and gloom merchant saying that there aren't opportunities, because there are opportunities. It's an amazing industry to be in. There's so many people like yourself who are prepared to give up time to help those coming in. But my message for those coming in is, one, you have to put the determination and the drive in to make it happen. You can't expect everything to be done for you, and you need to manage your own expectations on how long that could potentially take, and work out a way of, maybe you'd have to do another job first before you get the job that you want. Again, it's that instant gratification culture that we all live in that permeates across every aspect of our lives, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think you're very right. I think there's definitely I see two sort of branches coming out, and the problems that we currently see is there are companies who want to make money through training. We all know, and some
Of
companies
course.
should, but
Yeah.
companies want to make money for not necessarily for the benefit of their trainees, but just to make the money. And sometimes, as you say, fundamentals is a key point that sometimes people bypass on the
Yeah.
route into the industry. So without doing, for example, even I always say to people, yeah, CompTIA. So depending on your level of skills, if you jump straight into security bypassing networking and A+, you might miss some of the key skills
Yeah.
that sometimes you might know how to say do some security analyst jobs, but sometimes you are in a situation where you need to dig deeper,
Yeah.
and that's where you get lost.
I liken it to, I'm a bit crap at maths, so I think I've got dyscalculus, which is like dyslexia for mathematics, right?
Yeah,
Because I've always really struggled with it. But I think the reason I struggle with it is because I never learnt my times tables properly
yeah,
in primary school, and that fundamental knowledge then goes across everything you do in maths, doesn't it? And I think it's the same. It's the same in this industry,
yeah.
perhaps.
So that's one thing, and I think on the other side we touched a bit. I think companies as well, as you say, depends on the company's size, but companies, as you say, are hesitant or limited to invest in real junior talent.
Yeah,
And there's two, again, there's probably two, again, branches going at. Some companies are disguising junior roles as senior for the
agreed.
junior salary.
To pay them less. Yeah,
Yeah.
100% agree.
And
Yeah,
secondly, I think sometimes people usually, I think sometimes not enough taking a chance. Because
yeah,
I always say to
agreed.
people, in cybersecurity, most of the technical things you can learn. What I can't teach you is attitude and aptitude.
Yes.
Those two things cannot be taught. So if you find a person who's got the right attitude and aptitude and willingness to learn, so for example, a very simple example, I've hired someone who's been an electrician for 16 years, and
Yeah.
he got the first role in cybersecurity, and he's been a brilliant hire. He's
Yeah.
done tremendously well because I saw the plethora
And
of.
you gave him that chance. So do you know, there was a firm I was doing some consultancy for a couple of years back. I'll give them a shout out. Bramfit Technology Labs, really good firm. One of their best penetration testers spent 20 years working at Halfords as a motor mechanic.
Yeah,
And they took him on and trained him up, and he's by far their best tester that they've got. And I think you're right. And there's a lot of people in the industry who will give people the chance, but the majority of businesses, and that's the word we need to focus on, business is there to make money. And people can't forget that, because if the business isn't making money, no one at that business is going to have a job. And that's the harsh reality of the economic system that we live in, right?
you're definitely right, and I think if you look at two economies of scale, I think how security is changing as well. Always security used to be viewed as cost center for the business.
Yeah.
But now business leaders, including myself, are changing the way we do security and showcasing and security benefit and I guess ROI for the business, as in how we enhance the sales cycles, how we enhance
Yeah.
security of you know
It's sales enablement, isn't it?
yeah, sales
Yeah.
enable customer acquisition, closing the sales cycles quicker and enabling business development to do their job quicker. That's how it can help. I guess that's one part of the I guess community, and we kind of touched a bit. There is boot camps, there is self training, but I guess bringing people together who are on that path, who can share and bounce ideas and hear the actual truth instead of, there are some people sometimes who are misguided in their, I guess, journey into industry. That's one way.
Yeah.
Now, if we pivot into the next thing, I guess, whether, I don't know whether you read, but my latest article about how, cybersecurity, sales in cold calling, cold emailing is dead, and how the community is changing through, building communities together, doing events without sales pressure, but actually bringing people together to chat, bounce around ideas. And I guess that's another way of how your community is branching out. So
it is. I think the technology industry is an interesting one because we try and solve every problem through technology and automation.
Yeah.
And I think the lesson that's been learned with the sales outreach is that you can't automate this bit, the bit that you need, the building rapport, the building relationships. And I'm not going to say there isn't a place for that cold outreach, because I think, with 30 years in sales, I know there is a place for that. But I think there's a way of doing it that could be improved. So I think the industry needs to look at their automation sequences and inject some humanity into them. So I'll hold my hands up for the attendees for our events. We use cold outreach, and we use a tool. I won't name it because people might steal it. We use a certain tool and we automate certain parts of that process, but it's only parts like liking a post, following a post. When it comes to actual engagement, text content, speaking to people, that is all one person to the other. And I think for any organization, sales has to have lots of different facets to it to work. So you've got the cold calling aspect, which everyone's getting pissed off with, but it will still stay there. It just needs to improve. You've then got existing business development relationships, existing customers. And then you've got the nicer stuff like you're talking about, which is the events which we do, which do bring people together, but they're not. I'm not going to stand here as an event organizer and say this is what you should spend all of your sales and marketing budget on, because it isn't. It should just be one aspect of an overall, in my opinion. But yeah, there's some really bad practices out there for sales. And
yeah, I think as you touched, it's diversification of your outreach. But as you say, I think the way companies, and I see some of that being changes a bit, because obviously some of the behemoth large cybersecurity vendors, obviously they run massive marketing budgets with questionable practices. But I think some of the newer people who are coming to the market, they're understanding that sharing knowledge and being thought as a thought leader in specific niche, what they are selling, and driving community engagement, not only potentially expands the word of mouth, but showcases your values. Because, I think we all agree that some questionable practices, and obviously leaders are talking behind, through CISO communities, through all kinds of communities, and that word of mouth is very quickly builds a specific reputation where, your budgets or your marketing efforts, it's sort of rowing against.
It sucks. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, it does. So obviously you guys went, I guess, last year from 3 events. This year, I think you're doing 24 events.
We did 9 events last year across the UK and the US. We had ambitious plans for 24 events this year, but it's looking more like 13, 14 events. We've just signed a fairly big contract with BugCrowd to do some events in the US. We're working with another couple of partners on some in Europe, maybe one in Australia later this year. And again, back to I don't know if it was on this meeting live or whether we were chatting off air before. The biggest challenge I've had over the last 3 years is working out a way to monetize the community for 2 reasons. 1, to fund what we're trying to do within it, and 2, to pay me a wage to enable me to do it. And the first year was the happiest year of my life, but the poorest, because I was just spending all my time helping other people. And my wife said to me, "It's lovely that you're happy, Simon, but we've got 6 children and we kind of need to feed them." So the first thing I did was this. I set up a YouTube channel in 2022 and started doing leadership content, managed to monetize that through sponsorship with Rapid7 and No Name Security as well back in 2022. And after interviewing lots of leaders like yourself, a year later, February last year, I've had so many people come to me and say they're sick of the event formats they go to being very sales pitched focused, that I did a pilot event with a lad called Lee Gilbank from Leeds in Cambridge in the UK. And we got 35 leaders in a room, talked about instant response over beer and pizza. And it was such a success that, yeah, the next one we did was in Tampa, where we had 70 leaders turn up. We then got invited back to Tampa in September to do it again. We've done San Francisco, Washington, London 3 times, Manchester. And then this year we've done Austin, Texas in January, London, where I saw you in February. And then we've got next one is in May, RSA. Got 3 events at RSA this year. And then I'm at Washington, DC for Gartner at National Harbor, and then Black Hat and the usual ones for the rest of the year. So it's there was never any intention to run events. And the only reason I'm running events is to fund the community. And going back to one of your previous comments, or we were talking about the different ways you can learn and come into the industry. So I always moan about boot camps. However, and I'm going to come back to that in a second, you've got traditional certs, self-learning, college, university. You've got all these options and everyone's got an opinion on what one's the right one. And my honest opinion is there isn't one that's the right one, because we're all completely different people. What works for you might not work for me. And there is a space for boot camps, good ones. There is, because some people need the structure. Some people can't self-teach. They haven't got the discipline for it. So that's where a boot camp works really, really well. Some people thrive in a university setting. Me, I wouldn't thrive in that. So it's different courses for different horses is my point. I think there are, and this is, I'm rambling now, but coming back to the community, for the last 3 years, I've been looking at ways of implementing training plans for people to help them break in. And I think the one thing I've learned is that we're not the place to do that. What we're the place to do is bring people together where they can discuss, share their own experiences and work out what is the right thing for them. So what I'm trying to work on now is an approved list of education providers voted for and approved by leaders and community members. So when people come into the industry, they can go through some psychometric profiling that tells them a little bit more about themselves, what their previous skills are, what they're good at, what they enjoy. We can then match that to the type of job or career that they want to do. And then we'll know what kind of learner they are and we can recommend the right course for them. So that's the vision, that's the dream. I just need to get this not-for-profit registered and start tapping up the government for some money to get it done.
I think it's a perfect example, because I constantly get into conversations as well with people, and I always say to them, I can't prescribe you how you need to train. You have to see what works for you. Because, for example, I'm a video content receiver, so my normally courses will be watching videos. Where some people prefer reading, some people prefer any other methods, and it's about finding what works for you. I just wanted to pick up on the last point, and I know we had a previous discussion, because there are a plethora of funds in the government. And I guess where we kind of, I know there is a discussion talking about, there are big organizations that have entry-level training and can tap into those government funds.
There are.
But how do we make those government funds and training junior talent more accessible to SMEs and SMBs? Because this key point is we can't get, these companies can't have, if I got a team of 3, I can't.
You've got me excited now. I'm excited now. Yeah. See, I'm with you.
Yeah, I can't spend 1 or 2 guys training another junior person because my team is too small.
This is the other part of my dream. So going back to my 18-year-old who's thriving in this apprenticeship environment in Aviva, I'd love to build something with the help of funding from the UK or US government where we can provide an apprenticeship outsourced service to SMEs, where we can also offer those candidates community mentoring and support and continuous professional development for the first 2 years of their career. And I think that will help in 2 ways. One, it will help SMEs be able to afford the talent that they need. And if they're getting the mentoring and the support from people like you and the guidance for 2 years, they're more likely to stay at that organization as well. So you've then got the retention bonus added to it. So yeah, the SME sector is a sector that I want Infosec.Live to support moving forward. Going off on a tangent because you've mentioned it, I'm working on a conference for 2025 for the SME sector, and that's been driven by, and I'm going to name drop here, the recent NCSC event for businesses where the tickets are like 1,500 quid. You tell me, a small to medium business that can afford a 1,500 quid ticket to go and listen to some people talk about cybersecurity, that isn't the way to engage SMEs in cybersecurity. So I think there's a place for a focus for SMEs and providing them with affordable solutions. So yeah, that's something else that we're working on for 2025. I'm giving away all my secrets now, aren't I? By the way,
Well, yeah.
you knew I'd do this.
Well, that's why we have you here, because obviously I guess, we're highlighting, first of all, we're highlighting community and people who are, potentially going into the industry, and where can they find and learn and share ideas. But then secondly, as you say, there are prohibitions or barriers
Yeah.
for entry for junior talent, and those type of trainings and development opportunities and access to a broader spectrum than just big enterprises,
Yeah.
will level the playing field, but hopefully as well, I guess the another part where we need as a community to work, and that's where, either through posts, through communication, through sharing ideas, is teach companies how to hire security talent.
Yeah.
Because I know companies are struggling as well. We all know, we all are, and not every company can afford to use special recruiters. So what they're doing,
there's another can of worms we can talk about if you want.
Yeah, so they're using obviously generalist HR talent, and obviously they either copy and pasting job descriptions and creating unrealistic expectations and salaries as well. And I think that's another big piece where probably SMEs would get a lot of advantage while accessing that sort of knowledge.
Agree, and we already offer free advertising to any SME out there if they've got any cybersecurity jobs. We've got a dedicated channel for it in the community. We don't want the commission. We just want to match people up with jobs. So if there are any SMEs out there watching who've got jobs they want to fill, or they want some guidance from people on what jobs or what positions they need within the organization, have a chat with Marius or come and join the Infosec.Live community, and we're happy to share those jobs.
Brilliant. Sounds great.
I think the recruiter model is probably another hour-long discussion. There's some great recruiters out there. I've met at least 3 in the last 3 years, and there's some fucking terrible ones as well who are in it for completely the wrong reason. And I think with anything in recruitment, you're playing with people's lives, and it's an emotional thing for people when they're looking for a job. And the way it works at the moment is simply it isn't working.
Yeah, and I think it's similar to what we're discussing. Recruitment, sometimes it's overlooked, but it's just another form of sales. And the problem is, if you're not managing relationships and expectations between the talent and the recruitment, it very quickly deteriorates. First of all, we all seen, and you've probably seen it as well, automation practices where it says, dear this and that, and I'm just going to spam everyone and see who comes back without any actual, matching of job description and talent. That's a big problem in itself. But then secondly, it's just simple fact of communication. And I think I understand, obviously, recruiters are human and they are busy. But to me, I've even recently, dealt with a few, if you can't reply to the message, even just acknowledging, it has to go both ways. Because if I'm asking something of you and you don't reply, but then when you need something, you expect my reply. No,
you sound like HMRC, Revenue and Customs in the UK. They're like that. If they want tax money from you, they're banging on your door. But when you want a rebate, they're nowhere to be seen.
Well, yeah.
I think with the recruitment piece, it's such a difficult one. But we've now got AI integrating into everything. So in my opinion, there's absolutely no excuse why processes can't be put in place really quickly, where people will at least get some form of automated response within 3 or 4 days if they're not being taken forward on a job. I mean, I got a turn down for a sales director job that I applied for in 2022 in December 2023. Thanks, but we're not taking this forward. You know, there must be a way around that, right?
They expect there should be a way, and that's the thing. It's sometimes there's just it's just, I guess, a bypass. Some people are being lazy. Obviously, some people are just being thrown in the deep end, I guess, as well.
Yeah,
Because I
of
get
course.
lots of approaches where I guess people just matching skills. So if
Yeah.
somewhere on my application says that 3-4 years ago I worked with web application firewall, therefore I'm a perfect candidate for the web application firewall engineer job. And I was like, seriously? Well, yeah.
Well, what was the salary though? Did you look?
Usually it's highly competitive or something. That's it's, about a third of your current
I
salary.
mean, that's the other problem, isn't it? The lack of transparency with some of the job roles out there when it comes to salary and benefits. I'm not even going to turn up for an interview if you're not telling me how much you're going to pay me. No disrespect, but
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think sometimes organizations, obviously, they're playing two ways, because I heard of I mean, two things. Obviously, if you don't display salary, you are hoping that obviously someone, because sometimes if you put a band, say 80 to 100, someone who's potentially on 105 will never apply.
yeah.
But if your organization in their head, for the right talent, they want to pay that money, therefore they hiding it. But in the same way, it's still, if you want to expand, just expand the band.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're willing to pay someone whatever it takes to hire a good talent, just expand the band.
And that's back to what you said earlier. People aren't willing to pay, are they, at the moment? And I think that's a reflection on the economy that we're in, perhaps. But people are advertising roles as junior roles where people need 3 years experience. Well, that's not a junior role, really, is it?
Well,
I don't think.
yeah, exactly. Or people trying to play with clever words. Where my post was a couple of weeks ago, where they're saying, "Oh, we advertising amazing law firm, but we advertising a CISO role as a step up role. Therefore, we pay a step up salary, even though the job comes with its responsibilities, and you
Same
are
responsibilities. Yeah.
same responsibilities, same team. And sometimes people sometimes forget, as a CISO, you undertake a big responsibility, and there's you're become responsible for large security estate. So with the things that happened with solar winds and all of that, you need to be prepared for what you're undertaking, and you need to make sure that you are compensated equally enough for it. So if we go back to, obviously, we talked a bit about training, we talked about community events and community growth. We talked a bit about what obviously community is currently doing. So, and we talked a bit about the vision, but what else are you thinking, and how if you imagined what the Infosec.Live could look like in a year or two, ideally, when everything falls into place as it should be, what it would look like?
That's a great question. Again, one which changes monthly at the moment. The honest answer is, with numbers comes power.
Yep.
So this year, I suppose I should start by saying the 6,300 people we've got in the community has all been through organic marketing, i.e. through my LinkedIn profile, through YouTube shows like this. So we've never spent a penny on click-based advertising or anything else. My plan is to get 25,000 people in the community by 2025. I'm not going to say what point in 2025 because it's an ambitious target. And the reason I want to do that is because it gives the community power. It gives the community power to get discounts on lots of things. So we've already got partnerships with CompTIA. So all of our members can get 25% off exams, 75% off coursework. My dream is to expand that right across the cybersecurity ecosystem, so everyone can get discounts through that power of number. And the other thing that we're launching really soon, which I probably shouldn't say anything about because we haven't announced it yet, but I'm going to, because I'm an idiot, is a cyber directory for small to medium-sized companies who can't afford the marketing and PR spend that the big boys can. So what I mean by that is we get an awful lot of traffic to Infosec.Live. So from a click point of view, we've got quite a power there. We're going to set up a subdomain called the Cyber Directory on Infosec.Live. We're going to offer 500 of our existing members free access to that for life to get it going. And then we're going to make it super affordable for businesses to advertise on there. And when I mean affordable, I mean like $50 a year affordable for small consultancies, with a tiered structure going up for bigger firms. So that's immediate plans. Next few months, you'll see some more noise about that. But the other thing will be an increase in the events. And the thing that pains me the most over the last year and a half is I've had to focus all of my time on generating money to support myself and the community, that I haven't been able to put on enough community events. So my events have all been leadership focused. There's one reason for that. That's what vendors want to give me money for. And it's the vendor money that's building the community at the moment. So part of the money, 20% of the money we get from the events, I'm putting into a pot to pay for community events in the UK and US that everyone can attend, not just important people like you, Marius, because I think, again, technology always tries to solve problems with technology. I want to try and bring more of that face-to-face stuff back globally, not just in the UK, but everywhere. So yeah, big plans for that coming up in the next few months as well.
Okay, so if I'm pulling your tongue, I guess another thing which potentially it's helpful, and I think what you just touched on, obviously you've got a community that are potentially, large in its size, who are training to enter the field. So potentially, I assume, because obviously most of the community or events are geared towards, senior level professionals. So having an open community, I guess, also presents an opportunities for juniors to present and learn
100%.
that skill.
I'm so glad you mentioned this. It's like I've given you a list of stuff I want to cover off and you're prompting me, but I can promise everyone who's watching you haven't. One of the things I want to do to help both people coming into the industry and the general public is to use our community members to educate local sports associations, local schools, not-for-profits, so they can learn by learning to present, to warn the general public of data. So yeah, I'd like to do a big focus on that. Again, it's logistically, to do that globally is quite a big thing. So if there's anyone watching who wants to invest in that, just drop me a line. That would be great.
That was brilliant. And as you say, I think it's perfect opportunity, because there is a great deal of emphasis that, all of the events, as you say, it's all in the senior positions. And when we can tap into junior talent, bring fresh perspective, because usually juniors also, they're not necessarily school leavers. Sometimes they are.
No, they're not.
Career changers.
And even the school leavers, Marius, they bring such a unique perspective to what old white men like me have got. The most successful event I've done was in Tampa. A success from me leaving the event feeling pleased point of view was in Tampa in September, where we opened it up to the local Tampa Bay techies community, who are all new people coming in. And we had half the room of CISOs, half the room of new people. We had an open debate for the leaders for the majority of it, where the new entrants could kind of listen in and engage. And then at the end, we brought them together and we asked the young techies for their insights on how they thought the industry could be improved, what they see of the industry. And when the leaders left that event, that they got so much value from listening to them. And I think people need to realize as well, we talk about mentoring. Mentoring is a complete two-way street. I mentor about 5 people at the moment on a business, for business, not for cyber. And I learn as much, if not more, from them as they do from me. And I think for anyone out there looking for a mentor, it's got to be a two-way street. You need to be looking to see how you can add value to the person who's helping you, because people are giving up their time to help. I think that's something else that people aren't very good at. Perhaps people expect too much for free all the time. And I don't mean financially, I mean actually help.
No, I think it's a very important point, because, personally myself, I've been doing a lot of technological things, but since I got into a leadership position, I invested a lot of time in reading books that are outside of just technology.
Yeah.
And I think the lessons that are brought into my leadership have completely transformed me, because reading books such as Influence, understanding how specific decisions are being influenced, and how you can, for example, create a social engineering sort of influence in in traction into your, for example, end user
in a
awareness
positive
program.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just tremendous how you know how to leverage things like, you know, things that I've learned from smartest person in the room, from
Yeah.
business books, through, you know,
Is that
success.
Christian Espinosa's book? Christian
Yeah,
Espinosa's great book.
yeah,
I had him on the show about 2 years ago. I've got a copy of it actually down here. This is a we're doing book reviews. That's not a bad one as
yeah.
well.
That's another
That
amazing
was
book.
that was good for me as a not very technical person to get a good understanding of kind of the situation the industry's in at the moment.
No, that's a
And
great.
the other book recommendation is the one my wife did for me on our marriage day, which is a book about all the reasons she loves me. How about that?
Amazing. Where can we get that book?
You can't because it's like X-rated in parts, so we'll
Oh, okay.
probably leave that for another show.
Definitely for another show. And I guess, you know, just to sum it up, I guess, you know, you have, I think, achieved so far so much, but there's still so much more to come from Infosec.Live. And I guess a few things. First of all, how can people engage and find the community? You know, you talked a bit about directory, potential training, gathering people together, events. Where can people find out more about the community and obviously get involved?
Yeah, the community is at Infosec.Live. So if you just type that in the browser, it is gated, so you have to request to join. And the reason we've done that is to make sure it's a safe place. The other thing I'll mention quickly is you do have to have your profile picture on there as well. It can be a cartoon, but we want it to be an environment that fosters collaboration between people, not people hiding behind avatars. So everyone's welcome, everything's free, we've got lots of free resources in there. But to be honest with you, the most powerful thing about it is the chat, is the people who are in there day in, day out, supporting each other, helping each other. That's the real power of it. But it'd be great to see anyone. It'd be great to see you there.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, that was it. It was a great conversation. Thanks, Simon, for coming along. And
Pleasure.
hopefully this community will flourish as it's been, you know, and go, you know, grow at tenfold in the next year or two.
Thank you very much. I think, again, just to finish off before we wrap up, the community for me isn't about the money, it's about the people. And if anyone out there who's watching has got any ideas or insights as to funding that we can get as a not-for-profit, or any assistance that we can get from the government in the UK or the US, it would be gratefully received to try and help the people. But Marius, thank you so much for inviting me on here. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I'll see you at one of the leadership events soon, I hope.
Brilliant. Thanks for coming along, Simon. And as Simon just mentioned, you know, if you want to get involved, if you want to, you know, or help the community, as just Simon mentioned, you know, reach out to myself or to Simon, go directly to Infosec.Live in the browser, you know, and get involved. Obviously, if you are thinking about taking a leap into cybersecurity, there is no better day than today. Don't wait for tomorrow. Just get involved, chat with people. You know, there's obviously, I think the one thing I wanted to end on, there's no such community anywhere as cybersecurity, how
100%.
helpful and welcoming it is, and how much people can achieve just by, you know, jumping out and having conversations.
Yeah, I think I'd just like to throw something back at you there, because you said, you know, look at what you've achieved with Infosec.Live. It's not me who's done that. It's the industry that's done that. And I say this all the time because this wouldn't have worked in financial services. This wouldn't have worked in any other industry, because there's so many people who are genuinely good-hearted people willing to give back. So I thank the whole industry for that.
Brilliant. And on that note, thank you for, you know, coming along, Simon. And this was Diaries episode 6.
Pleasure. See you soon.